test. Should be good. All right, we're going to call to order the City Council work session for Monday, July 25th, 2022. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Lisa.
Jeff Dalkey.
Here.
Bill Leclerc.
Here.
Darla Leclerc. Here. Tracy Coach. Here. Tim Petrie.
Here.
Jason Ring.
Here.
Bonnie Shimalunas. Here. Scott Steckbuster.
Here.
Adam Wahowski.
Here.
All present.
All right, that brings us to discussion items, which we have one, to discuss background information and current citizen concerns regarding Beach Road right-of-way between Park Road and Lake Michigan. I know a couple of us were contacted. I know Jeff was contacted for sure because we got an email from him just earlier. And I know Greg has been in touch on this subject as well, so we'll let him lead us into it.
I just thought it would be well to put it on the agenda for tonight since it sort of came up as an issue on Friday morning going into the weekend. And I've got some background information prepared, but don't want to do too deep a dive. I guess that let me just identify quickly the area we're talking about and some of the history. I haven't had a chance to connect with Jeff after you went out there this weekend, I take it. I was out there with Jim McDonald and Scott All from engineering on Friday afternoon as well. So yeah, I think it's fair to say what we were hearing Friday were some citizen concerns about activity on this undeveloped stretch of city right-of-way, street right-of-way, which has been the subject of some discussion and controversy in the past, going back to 2011, 2012. So real quick, Beach Road is a platted, undeveloped city street. And sorry, I got this and I'm sharing my screen. Trying to do a slideshow and I never logged in. Yeah. Oops. Are we set or? Okay. Yep. Is there a number though that I? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, you're good. You should be able to.
Very good. Sorry about that, guys. Okay.
Can we share this with the public too?
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Just because it was a concern that came up, maybe
Yep.
if we can help identify it, we can.
Yeah, I apologize for the glitch there.
No problem.
Yep. We're
Thank
good.
you.
Beach Road is a platted but never developed segment of city street right-of-way that goes from Park Road, which is the dead-end street just north of Neshota Park, to the edge of Lake Michigan. I believe that's how it's defined, and it's how the parcels in that subdivision are defined. They extend to Lake Michigan, which varies in elevation, as you can see here. When this map was shown, it shows property lines going out into the water. It lies between 175 and 203 Park Road. Whoops, sorry. In 2011, Mark Ring, who then was the owner of 203 Park Road.
No relation.
I'm sorry.
No relation.
No relation, right. You might remember Mark as the former owner of Perkins in Manitowoc. Mark was looking to put the property up for sale and realized that he had a shed and a good portion of his driveway that were on the Park Road, or on the Beach Road right-of-way. As I recall, he had not realized that before then, although the shed, because the shed and driveway had been installed by a prior owner. He came to the city The council at the time considered the alternatives of possibly vacating the street right-of-way. Cities can, through a formal process that our city attorney can speak to, can abandon or vacate a platted street right-of-way. The protocol is typically, per statute, that it gets split evenly between the abutting property owners. And there was discussion at the time, well, could the city charge for that? Because, it's lakefront real estate. No provision in the statute for compensation for such. So basically, that was part of the discussion. There was also concern from some other property owners, residents in the area, not on the lake side of Park Road, about losing the ability to access what effectively is a 60-foot wide stretch of public beachfront at the end of that right-of-way. So the city council at the time, in December of 2011, approved 2 right-of-way privilege agreements. And that's a term set forth in Wisconsin statutes where a city can allow a private property owner certain rights with respect to the use of a public right-of-way. We have a couple of them on Washington Street where people put new facades on their buildings and realized after the fact they were 6 inches out into the street right-of-way. We've had them in other instances where people have yard improvements that over the years somehow got built on an adjacent undeveloped right-of-way. We can speak to the 2 of them. One of them specifically addressed a shed that was located not just in the right-of-way, but to the north of the center line of the right-of-way, a garden shed that had been built back in the 70s. Turns out when that was built, we found from searching through the files, the city's building inspector had said, it's in the building permit, it's acceptable to build it on the adjacent undeveloped right-of-way. If the city ever develops a street, you'll have to remove it and the city will have no liability, or words to that effect. So there was one right-of-way privilege agreement approved by council to allow for the continuation of that shed, but providing if it was ever damaged or destroyed, it couldn't be replaced. Also providing that the right-of-way privilege could be canceled upon 10 days written notice by the city, and that remains a right. The second right-of-way privilege agreement addressed the south half of the undeveloped Beach Road right-of-way for a distance of 400 feet, for a distance of 230 feet off Park Road. So 230 feet toward the lake. Obviously not all the way to the lake because you see some lot depths here of, like 576 feet. But that one was, near as I could tell, was intended to at least go back into the right-of-way off Park Road to the extent a driveway had been installed on it. That second right-of-way privilege agreement, approved on the same date as the first one, also provided that property owner at 203 Park Road could make use of that property for any use allowed in a street side yard under the city zoning code in the R1 district for things that a person could typically use a street side yard for, but again, it could be canceled on 10 days notice by the city. And in both cases, there was a requirement for maintaining liability insurance to protect against claims arising out of anyone's the use of that property. Those agreements remain in place today. And I understand I didn't know till Friday, but I came to realize the owner of 203 Park Road, which is no longer Mr. Ring, it's another owner, Barclays, have been doing some fairly extensive landscaping work, removed a deck, a landscape contractor on site. There were concerns expressed about some of those activities. My view going out there with Mr. McDonald on Friday, there certainly is landscape activity. The activity appears to be entirely either on private property or within the privilege agreement area. But that was our observation.
How much do they get in that privilege agreement area again to do landscaping?
They can do things you can normally do in a street side yard.
But for what's the width?
A distance of 30 feet into the right of way or to the center line, 230 feet back from Park Road.
Okay, so public still has access in the middle there. If both of them go 30 feet in, they're still room in the center to access that publicly, correct?
Or to, built to the north is not encumbered by any privilege agreement.
Oh, it's not, okay.
No, and I don't know, I had a brief email discussion with Jack earlier this afternoon. Actually, I don't believe the right-of-way privilege agreement precludes the public from making use of the area that falls under the privilege agreement.
Okay, so even if they do landscaping in that area, from what you understand, the public can still walk that area and get to that beach area.
Jack, help me out on this. That's,
Where is the landscaping? That's
30 feet into the right of way.
leaving aside for a minute where the landscaping is, the question was, can the public traverse to get to the beach? Any portion of the right of way? And I said, well, for certain the north half, because it's not under any privilege agreement, but I don't think there's an enforceable prohibition on public use
Well, it's,
on the south half.
when municipalities give the agreements of this kind, they grant authority to property owners to do certain things within the right of way. The city doesn't prohibit anyone from doing anything in the right of way. You're basically granting a right or authorization. Now, and I know this can get a little complicated. The question then becomes, what is the authority granted for? Now, take a situation where an actual physical obstruction is authorized by a city. I don't know, a dumpster or something. If there's extensive construction going on and the contractor needs a dumpster or something basically to sit in the right of way where they could dispose of debris and things of that nature. That could be done either by permit or by issuance of a street privilege agreement. Street privilege agreements generally apply to obstructions that are anticipated are going to be there for more than 90 days. So let's say you have this dumpster sitting in the right of way. Now, obviously, it sits on the right of way and the public cannot use that portion of the right of way on which the dumpster sits. And no ownership interest is granted. Now, physically, it actually prevents people from using the portion of the right of way on which the dumpster sits as a practical matter, but the city hasn't said nobody can use the right of way in this area. That's just a result of the fact that there is an actual obstruction sitting in the roadway. So the city doesn't really prohibit anything, and it didn't prohibit anything by granting these street privilege agreements. The fact that authority has been granted, though, creates, I would think, certain rights in the individuals as to the obstructions that are placed in the right of way. Here we got a shed, for example, and I guess a fence. If someone damaged the fence or started using the shed or damaged it or removed it, those items are properties of the person given the privilege. That person can do something about that, would probably have a claim against anyone who did that. But the city hasn't prohibited anyone from doing anything. The dispute would be between the holder of the privilege and anyone who objected to or felt that their rights were interfered with or were damaged by the authority given. When you have a driveway situation like this, landscaping, I really don't know. I'm not sure what's out there. I didn't go out with.
There's a driveway, there's landscaping. There
What
is
kind
a
of
fence that we
landscaping
heard
are-
about in 2012, I believe.
What kind of landscaping are we talking about?
But I saw stone pavers and some plantings, that sort of thing.
Could I make a comment? Oh, when you're finished.
Oh, okay.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Now, the driveway was given for purposes, as I understand it, or has been there for a matter of many years. for the purpose of access to and from the premises. Now, if someone tried to use that as their driveway, no authority was granted to them to use the driveway, install or if they tried to rip up the driveway, and I'm not talking about the owner of the premises, then again, the owner of the property, the grantee of the privilege, I should say, would probably have some sort of a claim. Again, it's not the city that would have a claim in that case. It hasn't prohibited anyone from doing it. But I think someone simply walking on the driveway, for example, I don't see how that would affect, frankly, the grantee of the privilege much at all. And it's really with these agreements, if any claims arise, the city isn't liable for them. The property owner basis on which the obstruction damage third parties, but
I guess I was just,
I think people can walk on the driveway.
and that's what I'm trying to get at is if
The
somebody,
landscaping, I guess, is kind of new to me.
if somebody encroached that landscaping while trying to access that beach, would
Someone
would they
walked
get in
on it?
trouble for trespassing or?
Well,
Let's say the grass started dying in that area because all of a sudden there's a bunch of foot traffic that's probably not gonna happen.
I don't
But
think,
if it would,
again, I wouldn't think so. I can't tell you what the grantee of the privilege would do. Maybe they'd feel that was trespassing. But I don't think the city could legitimately consider it trespassing. I have to draw that distinction here because of the curious relationship you have. And because what the city is doing is limited. It grants authority, okay, you can use right away for this purpose, but it doesn't prohibit anyone from using the right of way.
okay,
If there is certain rights prevented, that's the nature of the authority given. Nobody could use this driveway. They couldn't park in it. They can't fence it off or anything else like that. Then you're preventing, then you're interfering basically with some rights that the owner has and only the owner has in the right of way. Walking, I don't see how walking creates a problem.
Jeff, I know you were out there, maybe you could.
I never
share.
got out there.
Oh, you haven't gotten out
No.
there? Okay.
I was trying to find it and I couldn't exactly find where it was and I couldn't
Okay.
get a hold of the person that contacted.
Ani
me.
had something she wanted to add and then we'll,
Okay. The reason I went out there in 2011 and I couldn't see a pathway. It looked like you were entering a wooded area. I tried to go out there tonight, but I forgot. I didn't remember that this was the case. I mean, I didn't remember it as the same property. So I don't know what kind of changes they made. I didn't think his driveway the first time was on, Mr. Ring's driveway was on the right of way. I think everything was proper, but I remember it wasn't.
No,
It-
it was already on the right. of way.
Okay, that part I couldn't remember. So that's what the problem is? People are now using the driveway?
No, I don't understand fully what the problem is. I was not directly contacted. I just had two council members contact me that had
Okay.
citizens apparently with an interest in it. Maybe this is just premature. I was out there Friday. I didn't see anything out of line,
Yeah,
in all honesty. You can get from Park Road to the lake if you really have to get from Park Road to the lake on that 60-foot wide swath of property. But there were allegations about dunes being destroyed. The DNR warden came to Mr. McDonald's office
oh,
because he'd been told, as I think maybe some of the council members it was on DNR property. The undeveloped
Oh.
beach road right-of-way is not DNR property, it's city property. And I think generally the only jurisdiction the DNR would have would be like they do relative to any private property owner or the city, and generally below the ordinary high water mark of Lake Michigan. If you're above the ordinary high, heck, the city, wasn't my idea, the council directed it, the city bulldozed dunes across from the concession stand, not this council, a few years ago. And DNR thought it was kind of silly, but it was above the ordinary high. So,
Yeah, what I got from there was just what Greg had talked about. They were worried about the dunes and that we should contact DNR that they were wrecking dunes. I was also told that we're disposing of garbage back there. And again, I don't know this. This is just the
I can
information
tell
that I
you there's
received.
absolutely no evidence of that going on.
And they were encroaching on more of that right of way, that they were kind of extending what they already had. Was the information that I received and passed on to get further clarification.
The only thing we saw that probably extends beyond the right, more further toward the lake, but I think still on the southerly 30 feet, wasn't out there with a wheel, but I ended up, is a section of the path that gets you down to the lake that had been improved, I would say improved, with some wood chips and a wood retaining wall about 12, 18 inches high. And frankly, I think that's available to the private property owners or the public if they happen to be traversing that area. Probably should be addressed. I guess from what I saw, it wasn't anything for the city to be getting real excited about. Not to be,
Sorry.
not to be too cavalier about it, but we have people that encroach on undeveloped street rights of way all over town. That doesn't gain them any rights beyond what might be expressly authorized by the city. You can't come to enjoy adverse possession adverse possession against a governmental unit where private property owners, sometimes that's a concern.
I saw Bill's hand, then Jeff's, then Darla, so we'll go to Bill first.
I was there. And there were deck on the house. They did, on the one side of the, now that I see the right of way, one side of the right of way, they fixed up a path area to the beach.
Some firewood pub along the edge of that.
And, down below, right next to the house and in this area here, they do, I don't think it was on the,
There's sort of a big square area down below headed toward the lake, which
I guess it was a bunch of brush that they cut down. Actually, walk by there now, they can walk down to the beach, I guess, before. Oh, this person's driveway, I mean, it's one side of this right away here is the person's driveway. This, where the shed is here, I think they have a pretty large parking area there. That's probably take up driveway or have a couple of feet.
I'm not saying this, well, no, I was going to say this is necessarily scale, but it is a survey.
Sounded to me like there was a contractor that was there that was worried about doing work. Property.
There's a landscape contractor from Illinois there doing the work for the Illinois-based property owners. I don't know that he had any concerns, but I understand he had received some manner of letter from a neighbor that was critical in some manner of what was being done. I didn't see the letter.
That was all.
And maybe, I just thought a work session was a good place to bring this up. I don't know that we know enough about the concerns at this point to really. I was just going to point out the driveway you see there. It comes in right along that purple line, which is the south side of the right of way, and then the area opposite the garage, it flares out, and it's 2/3 of the way to the center line of the right of way. And the shed we mentioned before, the garden shed, is that one that looks like it's centered right on the center line of the beach road.
I think we should probably, I'm sorry, that's right, I had other people before I speak. Go ahead, Jeff.
In their initial agreement, can they improve? Or if you tear something down, you're done, you can't replace?
Well, this is the one I've got up on the screen that addresses things other than the shed, and I'll let Jack speak to it, but under it, you see, it addresses the northerly 230 feet of the southerly 30 feet of the undeveloped beach road right-of-way. Said area is to be used solely by the owner to access his private property. This area may be used in a manner consistent with uses permitted in required street side yards in the city's R1 single-family zoning district. So although the word solely is in there for access, as I read it, saying the area can be used in a manner consistent with uses permitted in required street side yards in the R1 district, I took that to mean if there's any improvements or activities you can have land uses in a street side yard in the R1, you're okay doing it here too. You are, of course, subject to provision that city could exercise its right to put Beach Road in at some point, and it's still cancelable. Or here, owner agrees, owner shall be obligated to remove the improvements on the premises which this grant is made on 10 days notice by the city. So I guess as a practical matter, most people wouldn't want to put anything of great value on there because on 10 days notice from this body, you could be required to take it all out. You know, I think it was the staff recommendation at the time, and there was some very strong public opposition to vacating it. I'm not sure what specific benefit derives to the public from accessing a 60-foot wide public beach when you mile long public beach, a block and a half to the south and 6 miles of state forest to the north. But that's not for me to decide. That's a policy.
Another
judgment.
thing that I'm under the assumption that when they did their walkway down to the beach, that where did this right of way end? Did it go all the way to the beach? You have right of way, why would you improve that right of way when you can do it on your own land and then there's no problems? What I mean? At the time.
The right of way, the Beach Road right of way runs all the way to the lake. I guess, you know, all I can say is property, some of their improvements like their garage, the way the garage was built, apparently it met the setback requirements at the time. You couldn't get a car in or out of it without going over onto the right of way. Beyond that, I don't know, other than, well, gee, art improvements, and as long as the right of way privilege agreement's in place, you have use of them. But you do it at your peril because the city can terminate it on 10 days notice.
And another thing that they had said to me is that when they had contacted the DNR, these numbers don't mean anything. These are just, must be statutes or something, that the city found it was under statute 66, but the DNR said absolutely not, is 236.
Chapter 236 is of the statute.
I'm assuming so.
That deals
I
with
was driving, so it was hard to do
that
some
deals
stuff.
with subdividing lands, I believe.
Well, heard it here first, most of you. And I'd be happy to send out these historic right-of-way privilege agreements and maps as I did to Jeff and Adam on Friday. But I take it that's the extent of council contacts on this so far. Or Bill. Yeah.
On Google Maps, it shows. I mean, if I lived in that, I would really like to find out if they really buried shingles there. If they did, they need to come out.
If they did a heck of a good job of it, I can say, just on my observation.
Well, it's not hard to do it. Those are, they said there was a hole there and they filled it, and that's where part of the dune was taken to cover it up.
Carla?
All right, I got a couple questions. First of all, I'm curious, why is there a city road there?
That's a very good question. Why would you want a road? Its only frontage is along the side of two private lots. The city conceivably, although the lake elevation messes you up, in theory, Jim and I have talked about this, there might someday be the need for a stormwater outfall there. I have a hard time imagining a street ever being built there. And I'm not here to advocate vacating it. I did that once and no, not going there again. But you can we've got history all over town of vacating street right of ways, but retaining utility easements for the city to do pretty much anything underneath that former right of way that it could. It was a, it was a plat from the 1940s, as I recall, so.
Okay, and, I'm confused. Who exactly is complaining about trash and destroying sand dunes? Who is that?
Neighbors.
What set them off all of a sudden?
I'm
You know?
assuming it was burying the trash.
The trash?
Not only
I-
that, they have cameras all over there. And when people want to walk down from that way, whether it's neighbors or not, they're outside harassing them immediately, telling them you're on private property, you need to go. The owner of said property,
Of 203?
yes,
And he's
Oh.
harassing the people who are trying to get down to,
yes, that
Really?
anybody that wants to go down there. And for it being public access, anybody can go down there and if they see something going on. So that tells me right there, that's a red flag for me, that something shady was going on and he did not like that. That's just my opinion, but operate. So
I'd encourage
Somehow
you,
we
any
need
of
to
you to
find out
go
what's going on.
with the complaining party and take a look at it, because if they buried debris, they get a really good job of it, and that would also qualify as really stupid, but, and I've talked to the property owner who said absolutely positively not, but,
I do know the DNR knows about it.
oh yeah, well, Jim had a DNR warden show up at his
In
office.
fact, the EPA was contacted too.
Basically, he did state.
I think we probably need to be real careful.
There's two sides to most stories, and I dare say there is to this one as well.
Yep, I just think we need to be real careful as to how much we let them encroach more on that right of way, because apparently there's people around there that do enjoy beach access for whatever reason to that area, but it might be neighbors that have lived there for a long time. I don't know the neighbors, but they may have lived there for a long time and may just be accustomed to using that access, and they may have had their house there for many years and have always had it, and that's just how it's been, and it's been city property. So I think it doesn't sound like they are encroaching on it, but I think we need to make sure that we get them maybe some sort of a letter that
you know
maybe
what?
reminds them that this is city property that you're on here. Don't go past what you're given to allow to make use of or make improvements to, but understand that it is still city property and this could be taken away in 10 days' notice. And maybe in the future, I don't know how feasible it is, but maybe we make a trail down there to make it easier for some of those neighbors and anyone else really that really wants to go down there.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, from any dealings I've had with the property owner, they've been very reasonable, and I think would probably likewise be happy to meet with any council members that have heard concerns and show them what is being done. I think that's a fair assumption. The other thing, and we had this discussion, and we can have it again, 11 years ago. It's great if it's a neighborhood resource that people like to use and are free to use. To what extent do you improvement? I could see a lot of headaches coming out of saying this way to the 60-foot wide city beach that lies in the midst of private properties on Park Road. I see the potential for a lot of headaches there, quite honestly.
I don't think
I'm
we
not
need to
saying we
make,
should stand in the way of people using it you can get down to the lake pretty easy right now, at least from my observation.
I don't think we need to make a sign for it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we put trails in other places of the
One of the
city.
biggest concerns he had was liability. We understand that they have liability insurance, but that means pretty much absolutely nothing because they'll come after next in line, which is the city, if something were to happen to somebody.
And we have trails that abut other properties, so I don't see the problem with putting a
Yeah,
trail
there's
through there.
There's nothing that precludes.
I mean, we do it at Washington Park. That butts right up the property. We do it at, along our subdivision that abuts property. I'm not saying we gotta make signs and encourage people to go down there, but maybe that would help ease the tension of neighbors too, knowing that they have their spot to go. Okay. I didn't stop down there, yeah.
There was kind of a steep hill.
Okay.
That is, I think, outside the privilege area, but it, again, my outsider's view, it really facilitates public access there.
But to me, I think sending them a letter, and it sounded like from what Jack was kind of saying, yeah, when I was saying maybe send them a letter to let them know and understand that this is the agreement, this is where it lands, and just kind of refresh them, seeing they weren't the original owners when this
I
kind of
think I-
happened.
Well, it's
I
certainly,
think they're quite cognizant of that, but, yeah.
certainly the case that the only authority granted is what's granted in the agreement.
Wouldn't hurt to send.
No
that
other
agreement.
rights nor no other authority within the right of way has been granted. And to the extent they're granted authority doesn't mean that they're granted ownership. I'm sure they have certain rights to what they put out there on the right of way, consistent with the agreements. But again, the city simply authorizes certain uses. That's the only thing. Its business after it makes that authorization is not to represent the grantees in any disputes they might have with third parties, or third parties with any disputes they might have with the grantee of the privilege, if they think that their rights have somehow been violated. But if that's the desire of the council, sure, a letter like that could certainly be sent.
It wouldn't hurt.
It wouldn't. I think it may help. And then obviously then the people know that we are doing our best work too and informing them to make sure that it doesn't encroach anymore on that right of way.
Oh, just really quick.
Yep, I'm going to you.
I think that we should do that, and, that's what we've been doing, remind them this is the deal, because it sounds like this is a neighborhood feud.
Mhm.
And we don't want to get in the middle of that, and it's a lot of he said, she said type of things, like burying trash and all that kind of stuff. Stay out of it, but I like your idea, just send it back out there, this is the deal, live by it.
If you look at the statute, I think it's pretty clear the intent of the legislature was to protect municipalities who grant these authorizations from claims by any party, including the person given the authorization. So if the grantee of the privilege, or if others think that they have certain legal rights, they can consult with their own attorneys, I guess is what I'd be inclined to say. It's not the city's job to represent them.
I honestly, and I'm not taking sides here, but I don't think there's been any terrible abuse of the privilege agreement by the grantee. They may have improved a path, not this summer, it looks like it's been there for a while, in the area that the public has access to. But to Adam's earlier point, I don't think it would take a lot of city resources. Understand you're going up, it's the typical ridges and swales you see along the lake. So it's up, it's down. If there was a way to make it more apparent, not that we're advertising it, but to someone passing by, well, I understand there's a trail here. That must be it, because it looks like a trail, not I can go up somebody's driveway and then start on a way. Maybe that helps solve the problem. To be honest with you, this was a hot in-your-face issue in 2011. It was a neighborhood dispute. It qualifies as that, certainly. And it's been quiet. It's been crickets for the past 10, 11 years.
Tim,
I just pulled up the plat maps and Google Maps, and Google Maps has a road not where the plat map shows the right of way for the road. They've got it down a house or two and actually
Let's-
has someone's driveway.
Yeah, it says Beach Lane though. I don't know, who knows? Yeah, it just says Beach Lane on Google Maps, so I don't know if that's something separate or,
Beach Lane, huh?
yeah, that's,
We'd have to look at
but
it.
Do we need that property for an outfall or something? Is it strategic?
Once you give it away, it's awfully hard. Oh, you know what I
We
mean.
have
If
to
we
give it
lose
away.
That's it.
Because we'd be, yep, you can't,
Can't sell it to them?
no. You'd be vacating a street or right of way, so it'd go to each property owner, I believe.
Heck, it's been a while, but I think at the time you had looked into it, and there's really no provision for there to be monetary consideration for a vacation.
For vacation, or discontinuance? No, I know of no authority for that.
And that's really the only way you could convey a public right of way to a private party, right? Unless, well, yeah, how? The city doesn't have an inherent right to convey other than what the statute provides.
Yeah, there'd have to be some sort of statutory authorization. And I can't think of any.
You know, the owner of the property that has the privilege agreement reiterated they would be more than happy to pay fair market value. And I said, you know, we looked at that, that's just not in the cards. There's the
$84,000, by the way.
Huh?
84,000.
it might be.
They already checked it.
I could check on authority if you'd like me to.
There was real strong pushback, at least from a few people that want that ability to use the public access. So that'd be up to the council to whether.
Connie?
Could the owner put up a sign, public access to the left? You know what I mean, like in front of his driveway, so they don't go too far onto his real property. I mean, we can't as a city, but can the owner do that?
They could. I'm not going to
Do you know
speak to
what
whether
you-
they could enforce it.
What?
Yeah,
Probably couldn't enforce because it'd be on the public.
yeah, again, if it's on the right of way, they don't currently have authority to do that sort of thing.
Could have a sign that says we highly encourage public access to the
Yeah.
left or the right, but it's kind of like saying we highly encourage you to stop at this sign.
I don't know if we could stop them from doing it. Check on that to see. In the law.
Jeff?
Part of the other thing that I got out of the conversation with the gentleman was neighbors were agitated because somebody from out of state going ahead and building stuff with no permits because they checked and there were no permits on record that they could find.
Vicky had a complete set of plans. I understand the only thing structural that was done was tearing off a wooden deck that was attached to the house. And it's being replaced. I didn't study the plans in detail, but it's being replaced with concrete and stone patio and those sort of site improvements, if I understand right. Most, if not everything they had, according to inspections, did not require a permit.
Okay.
I didn't have
I
a
guess
permit
if
pulled
there's
for my own
more
attached patio.
details that come out on this, I don't think there's any action required at this time, other than maybe to remind people of responsibilities I think they're pretty acutely aware of. Let's see what else comes through council. Again, our office, no city staff department has heard anything from
Been
council.
relatively important because we cleared an agenda for it.
Well, it seemed pretty important Friday. I was hearing from you, I was
Yeah.
hearing from Adam. I thought,
I'm just saying,
yeah,
to
I was trying
proactive.
to be responsive, yeah. Because sometimes these things have a tendency to blow up, and we had a light work session night, so here we are.
Scott had a question.
Not a question. Can you just go back to slide 6? The one with the survey? I just wanted to look at it one more time.
Sure.
Thank you.
As they look at that, is that something we can do, is send that out to them, to the property owners, the agreement?
Yeah. I guess what are we telling them? In case you've gone off the privilege agreement, don't? Or we note this path? That's the only thing I've seen.
We're just making them aware of this is the agreement. This is kind of your 30 feet. It's just more or less a reminder. You weren't the original homeowner when this happened. You are that owner now. We've had complaints. We just want to make you aware. Not that it stems, all of a sudden it's 35 feet or 40 feet, and
Right.
then we
we're
really
not-
anger.
we're not
And we can
saying
kind
you-
of put the nail in the coffin now and just say, just make sure it's not anymore.
I mean, the owner's an attorney and she fully understood it, I think, when they bought the property, but to remind them of their responsibilities, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
They,
I think Darla agreed with that, and
They're probably not doing anything
They're probably
bad,
not. They're probably, and
you know,
we're not implying that, I don't think, by sending the letter either.
No.
We got
Just
some
be very
complaints. We
gentle
just want to
about it,
make
yeah.
sure that you're aware of this is the agreement, just so you have it.
In the meantime, if somebody finds that there's damage being done to dunes on city property or in a manner that's in violation of DNR law, nobody's standing in the way of that being enforced. Or if there's landfilling of construction debris. It sure didn't look like that from a walk of the property on Friday afternoon after 4:30 with two other city staff. Just trying to be responsive because this was a big, hot, hairy issue 11 years ago. So.
Thank you for going out there to check on that. Because we do want to make sure everything's legit and right, and you did
If any
that.
of the rest of you make a trip out there and you see something of concern,
I'm
let me know.
gonna take a trip out there. I'm gonna be back in town again on, Sunday. So I think next Sunday I'm gonna be able to get out there, so.
Anybody else on this one before we put it to rest?
Thank you.
See none that, is that it, Greg? Do you want me to go right into 5?
Sure.
Yes?
Yes, please.
All right, on to 5, which is closed executive session. The city council reserves the right to enter into closed session per Wisconsin statute 19.851E when deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investment of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Tonight, we will discuss possible property purchase, right of first refusal held by city on property adjacent to Woodland Industrial Park. We will also discuss possible property purchase and discuss possible city assistance to development projects in TIDs 15 and 16. We do not expect any action back in open session except for to adjourn. So I'm looking for a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? This is a roll call vote. Lisa?
Bill Leclerc,
Aye.
Darla Leclerc,
Aye.
Tracy Coach, Tim Petrie,
Aye.
Jason Ring, Bonnie Shimalunis,
Aye.
Scott Steckmesser,
Aye.
Adam Mahowski,
Aye.
Jeff Delke.
Aye.
All in favor.
All right, that brings us to closed session and we'll shut this off. We'll give